We ready to proceed? Good afternoon and welcome to this online hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Ottawa. The Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial tribunal appointed by City Council to make decisions on certain types of applications under the Planning Act. My name is John Blatherwick and I'll be chairing this hearing today. With me are my fellow panel members, Heather McLean, Bonnie Oakeshara, Stanley Wilder, and Michael Wildman. Please take note that this video conference is being live streamed on YouTube. The video will be archived along with today's agenda on the city's website. Before we begin, we have a few items to outline for your information. While the issues surrounding development of the city are broad, our mandate is quite limited. The committee cannot consider aspects of the proposal that are not related to the required variances: noise, pollution, property maintenance, or property values, prosecution for illegal construction, personal comments regarding neighbors, agents, or applicants, additional variances without proper public notice. If there is an identified need for an additional variance or variances, including an increase in the extent of the relief required, a recirculation of the application is required. Part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property and file a statutory declaration confirming the sign posting. And I note, looking at the list of speakers, that we're going to have to administer the solemn oath regarding the sign postings for every application today. Regarding quorum, if this is lost during the hearing due to technical difficulties, the proceedings will be paused to allow time for the resolution of the issue. Failing the ability to reinstate quorum, hearing of the items remaining will resume at the outset of the next regularly scheduled meeting of the committee. In terms of the hearing process, listed on the agenda and appearing on the screen are the applications we will hear today. For the sake of efficiency, the committee may deal with agenda items in a different order. Note that the committee members have reviewed the application materials prior to this hearing and any written submissions received in support or in opposition. In addition, the committee will hear today oral submissions from any interested parties as part of our proceedings. The committee may ask for a brief presentation by the applicant, followed by questions from the members where clarification may be needed. The public submissions portion of the hearing will then begin, and any interested parties will be invited to make their submissions to the committee. Panel members may then ask follow-up questions where added clarification may be required. When you are called upon to provide your comments, we will ask you to do the following. Start with stating your name and municipal address for the record. We may ask you to spell your name. Then begin your submission by addressing your comments to the panel members. You may ask questions, but please direct them only to the chair. Please limit your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at the committee's discretion. Once all interested parties have had an opportunity to address the panel, the public submissions portion of the hearing will then be closed. The committee will then make an oral decision to either grant or deny the application. The committee may also choose to reserve its decision. In such case, the panel will deliberate further on the evidence presented immediately following adjournment of the public hearing. In either case, the committee will send within 10 days of its decisions and to all parties and those who have requested it, a written notice of decision that sets out the reasons for the decision. All decisions of the committee are subject to a 20-day appeal period, during which the decision can be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal for a fee. Before we begin, we note that there is no confirmation of minutes needed. Any declarations of interest for either this panel or the other two panels today? No, okay. We have a number of adjournment requests to deal with today. I'll start with those. And the first request for adjournment is from the planning department for item number 3, 55 Armstrong. Ms. McKeown.
Yes, Mr. Chair, good afternoon. So there are a number of instances where clarifications are required from the applicant, and also one minor variance is missing for an accessory structure for addition to it.
One additional variance.
Is missing here.
So that requires a recirculation, and that means we will need to adjourn this sine die. Is the agent for this application available? I can't hear you, sir. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yes.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please identify
okay.
yourself for the record, please.
Okay, my name's Ewald Zieger, E-W-A-L-D-Z-I-E-G-E-R. I'm the applicant for the application.
Your address for the record, please.
200 Scotland Private, Ottawa, K1B 1E2.
Yeah. You're aware of the department's request for the adjournment?
Yes, I got that last week, and we replied with we don't want to have it adjourned any further for the simple reason that we had spoken with the planning department when we made the application. It was a different planner at the time that we had spoken with. The zoning department provided us with the required variances for a 3-unit building, and that's what we're going with. And in my estimation, there should be no more further discussion of what the planning department is talking about.
However, the planning department has indicated that there are more variances needed for this particular application to proceed.
Well, what are the additional applications of variances that we require? When we made the building permit application, we were told that the existing garage structure at the back had no bearing on the requirements for variances. The building is existing. We needed a side variance, a front variance, a lot width variance, and an area variance for a 3-unit building. They had the site plan. When I first talked to the planning department and the zoning department, they said the rear garage was existing. It had no bearing on this variance and renovation, and it was never indicated when we started this process. And I understand now that there's a new planner with the Committee of Adjustment who has brought this up just last week. And
Yeah,
I find it.
Been around for some time. Ms. Wakula, could you reply to Mr. Digger, please?
The site plan, yes, Mr. Ziegler, the site plan indicates the addition to the accessory structure that doesn't have the required setback of 0.6 meters. And moreover, the minor variances for lot widths and lot area, your lot area and lot widths are compliant for 3-unit dwelling.
Okay, well, I don't know what structure you're talking about. If you're referring to the stairs
On the garage
for
building.
the garage building,
Yes.
the stairs on the garage building can be eliminated.
But they are existing. They are not part of the construction.
Well, they're on the plan, and so if that's what your objection is, then we can remove the stairs in the garage, on the garage accessory building, and forget about that. What we're dealing with is the renovation of a three unit building, the main house, the main structure on the building.
I understand. Your site plan indicates this addition as proposed, and I actually wrote you the email asking about this addition, and I didn't receive a response.
Well, I phoned you and I left a message that if you are insisting that there be no further stairs added to the existing garage at the back, then we'll remove them from the application.
I have no concerns with the stairs, just with the setback for the stairs. If the setback will be compliant, I have no concerns.
Okay, well, forget the stairs. Forget the stairs altogether.
Mr.
Yes.
Ziegler, before we consider, why don't we just step this down to later on in the agenda, and perhaps you and the planning department can have a discussion, and then we can, we'll revisit the application later on in the proceedings.
Sure.
Obviously, some confusion here.
Okay, sure.
One thing the committee would like to hear from you, though, if you're going to, if the presentation goes forward today, is the reason why the building code services issued the order to comply and what those renovations were. Okay, let's stand this down. Mr. Kula, Mr. Ziegler, please have a chat, and we'll get back to you later on in the proceedings. Thank you very much.
How to make it?
How do we have a chat with the planner?
Phone. Give him a
Oh,
call.
on the phone?
Yeah, give him a call.
Oh, okay.
All right, thank you. The next item up for adjournment on our list today is items 7 and 8 on the agenda, 311, 315 Atlantis Avenue. This is an application to sever the property into 2 parcels to construct a semi-detached dwelling with reduced lot widths and areas. And the agent for this application, the agent there.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Kazem Ziai, K-A-Z-E-M, last name Z-I-A-I-E. This is regarding 311 and 315 Atlantis Avenue.
Yes. All right. At one point, there was going to be an adjournment for this application. Right. However, we understand that there were late submissions on the application.
Well, there were a couple of outstanding issues, and we managed to settle the disagreements. There is only one item now standing in our way, and that is, I guess, Masha, very kind of her, she managed to work it out with us. We don't need a variance for item C under 311 Atlantis anymore. Yep. And the only outstanding issue we have right now is item D under 315 Atlantis.
However, you've furnished the committee with a revised site plan submitted today, correct?
Right. Yes.
That means that, and has the planning department got a copy of that site plan?
From what I know, I think they had it. And Masha, can you correct me if I'm wrong? I think you had the revised site plan way before, but I think for some reason the committee didn't get it, right? Or you just got it, the one that I sent today? I
received the site plan from engineering team. Yes. I don't know if it was circulated.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know if it was circulated by the applicant to the committee like it should have been.
But this is a new site plan, Mrs. A.
Yes.
And the neighbors haven't seen this site plan.
Well, we only brought the structure.
The neighbors haven't seen the site plan. The neighbors have a right to see the site plan, Mr. Zai, and apparently, we also understand that the draft R plan needs amendment as well. And I don't think the committee has a copy of the new draft R plan.
Okay.
So I think it's probably best to adjourn this application. I think we have space on the April 20th
Yes.
meeting of the committee, and you can get those materials to us and ensure that the neighbors have access to the materials as well. And then we'll proceed with the application on the 20th of April.
Sorry, what do you mean by neighbors like leave the notice there and then they would have access automatically for the?
You have to. I'd suggest that you hand out a copy of the amended site plan and to the.
Put it in the mail?
Pardon me?
Sorry, put it in their mail, you mean, or hand it out?
But knock on a few doors and say, I've changed the site plan for the process for my project. Here's what it's going to look like.
Okay, I'll do that. Sure. So we are good for the 20th of April again then?
I think we're, Madam Coordinator, we're okay with, we have enough space on the 20th.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the 20th should be.
Okay. Okay. So if you can get those materials.
Oh, sorry, just before I go, so you want me to send the panel the most revised copy of the site plan and then hand it out to the neighbors? That's all you need from me, right?
And we need your revised draft R plan.
Absolutely.
Well.
Okay.
We have to make decisions based on all the evidence, and we don't have all the evidence, so that's why we're adjourning. So
okay, no problem.
Any problems with or any comments from the members of the panel? We'll adjourn this until the 20th of April. Okay. Applications adjourned till the 20th of April. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Next application. Up for adjournment. That's 3, 7, 8. Next application that is up for adjournment today is item 13 on the agenda, 121 Evelyn Avenue. And these are minor variances to allow for renovations of an existing single-family dwelling. This request for adjournment has come in from the agent, and that would be Mr. Hamel.
Hello.
Mr. Hamel, your name and address for the record, please.
My name is actually Lucas Tardioli.
Okay.
Dr. Hamel.
Okay.
You're aware of the adjournment. There is a extra variance that's missing for a corner site triangle.
Yep. Okay. And that means there'll be this will be adjourned sine die and be recirculated.
Why am I not starting video? Is that me? Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's just this is the only variance you need is an extra variance for the corner site triangle.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any questions, comments from members of the committee? We have several other neighbors on the speakers list, and this is only to the adjournment. We've been asked for an adjournment. We're asking for an adjournment so that we can get the missing variance added to the request for relief. So,
I think there is another missing
can you
variance.
identify yourself, please, ma'am?
My name is Susan Irvin, SUSAN, IRVINE,
And your address, please?
143 Concord Street South.
Okay.
I believe there's another missing variance in terms of the backyard existing structure that they want to put a roof deck upon, and that structure is a shed or a lean-to. It won't in any way support a roof deck with weight up there. I think there's a missing variance there as well to the rear yard.
The only variance that we've been informed of is the variance for the corner site triangle, so.
The structure has to come down. It's obvious.
This is not before us today. Mr. Hamilton. Are you there?
I am.
The residents comments about this? Have you had any discussion with the applicant regarding this?
Not about the structure in particular. It is shown on the plan and we have reviewed it as a part of the principal structure. It isn't detached. So in our view, it's not accessory. It is part of the actual home itself. So I don't have any concerns with it at this time. Given that we are adjourning, I'm happy to discuss it with the applicant and the neighbors as well.
We can, the planning department will get back to you, ma'am, on this. That's probably the best.
Adjourned, and we just wait for further discussion.
Mr. Hamilton will get in touch. We'll get in touch with you.
So my name is Jane Yak, and I'm a neighbor as well. So,
Your address, ma'am?
pardon me,
Your address, please.
18 Simcoe Street. So am I to understand that just it's being adjourned because of the letters that came in? And
because an additional variance has been identified, corner site triangle variance is needed.
okay,
That's just the corner of the garage. Though.
yeah. So we also do need the existing lean-to was non-compliant, and it is it does need to be completely rebuilt, and it requires a variance. Not only
that's not a discussion that's before us today. We're dealing with the corner site triangle. And again, I suggest you talk to Mr. Hamilton of the planning department.
okay.
He's the one who's reviewed this application. He probably has better knowledge of it than we do. So if you can talk to him and get any confusion resolved, is probably the best way to go. Mr. Wilder, you had a comment?
Yeah, I suggest, since there's obviously several parties interested in this application and they have concerns, I would suggest that Mr. Hamel and his staff work with the planner and these residents before this comes back to the committee to resolve their concerns. Obviously, I have concerns with this application, Mr. Hamel. I'm telling you that now. I'm very displeased that your rationale is extremely weak on this application. I'm also very concerned about the letters that were sent in with the drawings for the corner triangle. And I'm not sure if I'm really satisfied with how that's been resolved. So I would imagine that you want to maybe speak with some of these other neighbors before this comes back to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilder. All right, any other comments from the members of the panel? We'll agree to adjourn this application sine die to get the additional variance added into the request for relief. And that also gives the neighbors time to discuss with the applicants and the planning department the issues regarding the shed, if there are indeed issues.
Thank you very much.
We'll adjourn it as a sine die.
Okay, thank you.
This application is adjourned sine die.
Okay. The next application, which is up for adjournment today, is item 16 on the agenda. And this is 41E, 41F Sterling Avenue. And it's an application to permit a reduced lot width, lot area, reduced pole width, rear yard depth and area, side yard setbacks, increased building height, and a reduced common wall for a new long semi-detached dwelling. The request for an adjournment has come in from the Hintonburg Community Association to April 20. And we understand that the agent is in agreement with the adjournment till the 20th of April. Is Tracy Zander, I believe, is the agent for the applicant. Or Chris Clark. Are there either one of them there?
Hello, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Your address for the record, please.
Do you want our business or personal address?
Business is fine.
We are 40 Sunset Boulevard, Unit 40, Perth, Ontario.
Okay.
So you're aware of the Wittenberg Community Association's request for an adjournment for several weeks, and you're in agreement.
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. However, we're going to have to repost the sign.
Yes, the sign was reposted, Mr. Chair. The day that the association reached out to us, I let our client know, and she went and reposted it with the metal stake, so it's securely fastened now. So that is up, but yes, we are meeting with them on the 12th, the association, to do a presentation. It's the same as what was proposed before. We did present to them before, but it's been several years, so we're going to go back.
Okay, Mr. Wilder.
Mr. Clark, I would suggest that you take a look at the, again, at the comments from the planning department. They have concerns with height, and just coming back to us, in my mind, is not adequate until you really try and address some of the concerns that planning has raised, because I'll still have many questions. So don't just take it for granted that if the association supports it, that we will. I mean, frankly, I think some of the comments from planning are valid. Thank you.
I just have a question for staff regarding the sign. Now that we have confirmation that it's been reposted, it's been put up again, we can push this back until the 20th of April and don't have to go to May 4th.
Mr. Chair, a new sign will need to be posted on the property. And
Okay.
unfortunately, the date for the April 20th posting has passed. So it would be for the May 4th May 4th hearing.
So you've heard from staff, Mr. Clark, that means the 4th of May and not the 20th of April.
Okay.
All right. And I believe Ms. Hode is also online to the adjournment. Ms. Hode.
Yes, we're quite pleased that it has been adjourned, and we're looking forward to the presentation on the 12th of April. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. We're all in agreement to adjourn this application until the 4th of May for the new sign to go up. All right. All right. Thank you. We'll see you all next month.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. And that is the adjournment applications. And I'll move to the regular agenda. The first item on the agenda this afternoon is item number 1. It is 262, 262A, 262B, 262C Columbus Avenue. And this is an application to subdivide the property into 3 parcels of land for a new 2-story townhouse dwelling. The agent for this application is Sanford. Are you there?
I am. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Amanda Sanford. I'm located at 108 Bridge Street in Picton, Ontario. So our application today is for 3 townhouses currently underway. And as you stated, we are looking to sever those into 3 separate parcels so that they can be sold as individual parcels.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. Before we continue, I have to administer the oath.
Oh, I apologize.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time.
Yes, I do.
All right. Okay. So this is a simple consent application. Is your application consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 regarding consent? In your opinion, you don't need a plan of subdivision needed for either the property and orderly development of the land?
No.
And regarding 5124 of the Planning Act, which are the consent criteria, well, does this application have your adequate regard for the criteria in that section of the act?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. So the department has no concerns. They have the planning department. They have indicated that there are 5 conditions requested, and you're aware of those conditions.
Yes.
Cash in lieu of parkland, a party wall for 1 hour fire separation verification, the servicing plan, asphalt overlay is required, and a joint use and maintenance agreement. Hydro
Yes.
Ottawa is also requiring a common elements agreement with you.
Yes, we understand.
And Bell Canada has also notified you, no doubt, that there's also going to be an easement required.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And the right-of-way branch from the city, standard comments regarding private approach permits required for any new relocated or widened driveway.
Understood.
Okay. Granting this consent.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I couldn't hear your last comments.
Pardon?
It cut out.
Pardon me?
My audio cut out, so I couldn't hear your last statement.
Oh, I was just asking the members of the committee if we agree to approve your consent.
Great, thank you.
That's a show of hands. All in favor? All right. Consent's granted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. Right. Next application. Is item number 2, 490 Wellesley Avenue. And this is an application to permit renovations of an existing single-family dwelling and the addition of a secondary dwelling unit in the basement. The applicant for this is Mr. Andreev. Is he
Yes,
there?
good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. Yes, my name is Pavel Andreev.
Before we continue, Mr. Andreev, I need you to undertake the oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do, I swear.
Okay. All right, and very, very briefly, exactly what is the nature of your request?
Briefly, we are planning a development to add to existing bungalows that we own, front addition and the garage. If we're not going to run the presentation, so briefly, the lot that we own has a regular shape.
Yep.
And sorry, I think it's starting sharing the screen. Okay, so please next slide. So as far as you can see, the lot itself has a regular shape. It's wider in the south and actually really narrow at the north side of the property. And there are no parallel sides. And also the front side, the front property line actually is also not straight line, consists of 2 lines facing inside the property. Result of this exactly just because when it was planned initially in 40s of the previous century, the street Wellesley was planned to have a bend exactly in front of our property, but eventually it was built straight. Next slide, please. And as a result of this not straight front line doesn't allow us to build an addition. And actually what we want to move the front addition and to have it in line with our neighbor houses. But this small peak doesn't allow to do it. So in order to proceed, can you move to the next slide, please? Next slide. So here on the slide, you can see our development plan. We want to have this front addition and the garage. Yep. Our property is in mature neighborhood. We also submitted streetscape character analysis, and we got confirmation as BBA, so we can build this garage. In order for us to proceed with the building permit, we request the authority of the committee for minor variances, A and B. A, it's exactly for the reduction of the front setback. In order to have it in line with our neighbors, we need to have 4 meters and 19 centimeters, where bylaws right now requires the average of our neighbors setbacks, which is 5.808. And the second one for the corner of the garage, where the bylaws require at least 1.2 meters. And because of the irregular shape of the lot, we request to have this reduction to 0.95. Next slide, please. So we submitted in our applications, and I hope justified all 4 tests. We conducted multiple consultations with the planning committee, with the city, with our neighbors, with the Westboro community. We received full support, and we are looking forward for your decision. Thank you. Next slide.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Andreev from the members of the committee? I think this is pretty straightforward. And we thank you for your comprehensive materials that you sent us. Very helpful.
I tried my best.
Yeah, well, it's sometimes the evidence presented is a little thin. Not in this case. Anyway, there are no concerns from the planning department. Hydro Ottawa, of course, want you to contact them. Resurfacing requirements right away. People are typical comment about a private approach permit is required for any new relocated or widened driveway. And I note that, we note that the
It will be existing. We are not.
yeah, we note that there are the Westboro Community Association is in support of the application, along with one of your neighbors. Right. Ready to vote on this application? All in favor of granting the application? Your application's approved. Good luck with your project.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too. Next application on the agenda is, items 4 and 5, consents and variances, 37 Grange Avenue. The application is to sever the property into 2 lots to construct a semi-detached dwelling with front-facing garages, reduced rear yards, and reduced front yard landscaped areas. The planning department is objecting to this application because of the front-facing garages. So the applicant's going to have to address the department's concerns with her from the department in a moment. I believe Ms. McQuaig is the agent today.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Mr. Arjun.
Your address for the record.
Apologies. 43 Eccles, Unit C, and
Okay.
I can do the oath as well.
Yep. Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do affirm.
Okay. And you're aware of the planning department's opposition to this application.
We are aware of the planning staff's position. We do have a presentation as well. Mr. Arjun Soor will be delivering the presentation, and following that, the owner would like an opportunity to speak. And if it would be helpful to the committee, I can also respond to the staff's planning report after that.
Yep, that's fine.
Thank
Please
you.
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, if we could go back to the previous one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to note that on this call, we have my colleague, Christine McQuaig with us. We also have the property owners, Anthony Rotundi and Ramsey Shuck with us, and our architect, Steve Ardington. I also want to point out that the original notices, there was an error in the original notices, particularly notice A, which identified the requested rear yard setback variance to be 7.94 meters for both parts 1 and part 2. And it's supposed to be 7.94 meters for part 1 and 7.87 meters for part 2.
Yeah.
And as a result, the percentage of the rear yard was also calculated incorrectly on the notices. And these errors were pointed out to staff and they confirmed the corrections.
Yes, we noticed that. There's also some revised elevations that were submitted dated April 1st, 2022.
Next slide, please.
We have those as well.
So the site is located in Wellington Village. Next slide, please. So I won't read the slide, but just note that the dwelling is permitted by the official plan and the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. So this just presents an aerial overview of our site. Next slide, please. So the site has a lot width of 15.09 meters, a lot depth of 27.9 meters, and a lot area of 421.44 square meters. Next slide, please. So these are just some images of the site. If we go to the next slide, please. So these images show the dwellings that immediately abut the subject site to the north and to the south. What you can note here is the common provision of front-facing attached garage. And what that means is that the proposed development will be flanked by front-facing attached garages on both its north and south property lines. Next slide, please. So the proposed development is for a two-story semi-detached building containing 2 units. The units will feature single front-facing attached garages, which is an improved design choice over the permitted cantilever design. And the development provides gentle intensification and additional housing unit within a contextual low-rise ground-oriented built form. Next slide, please. So this slide just shows the setbacks for the proposed development. One thing I'd like to note is that the additional front yard setback that's provided of 1.69 meters and 1.72 meters is greater than the encroachment of the building into the rear yard. And this front setback was chosen to align with the abutting dwelling. As a result, the building that's proposed is smaller than what would be permitted by the zoning setbacks. Next slide, please. So these are just the building elevations. If we could go to the next slide. So the requested severances are to create 2 new lots, each with a frontage of 7.54 meters and a lot area of 210 square meters. Next slide, please. The requested variances are to permit a reduced rear yard setback of 7.94 meters for part 1 and 7.87 meters for part 2, to permit front-facing attached garages for both part 1 and part 2, and to permit a reduced aggregate front yard soft landscaped area of 8.35 square meters for part 1 and 8.42 square meters for part 2. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to move into a discussion of the 4 tests. The first test is whether the proposed variances are considered minor. The variance for the reduced rear yard setback is considered minor as it's technical in nature. As I mentioned before, it's based on the provision of a 3 meter front yard setback, not the provided 4.69 meter front yard setback, which was chosen to align better with the established front yard setbacks along Grange Avenue. The variance for the reduced aggregate front yard soft landscape area is considered minor, as the development still provides adequate green space and permeable surfaces on the property. Additionally, despite the provision of the front-facing attached garage, the aggregate area is large enough to accommodate a tree planting in front of each dwelling. And because a greater front yard setback is provided than what is required, more aggregate front yard area is provided with the proposed development and with the zoning compliant option. Lastly, the variance for the front-facing attached garage is considered minor, as it demonstrates good urban design that helps align it with the overall streetscape character. The building's design features large windows to create a sense of transparency from the street. The visual massing is designed to draw a viewer's eye towards the center of the house and away from the garages. The garages are also set back from the entrances to further emphasize the center of the house and the entrances. And the proposal results in the removal of vehicles from the streetscape thanks to the proposed garages, and improves the existing condition by removing the existing front yard parking. Next slide, please. So this is just a side-by-side comparison of what our client is proposing versus what's permitted under the current zoning. So the rendering on the left demonstrates what our client is proposing. With this option, the garages blend well with the house's overall design and they're well integrated into the overall design. Vehicles are not visible in the front yard, and residents gain a functional benefit by being able to store their recycling, garbage, household items, bikes, etc. in the garage. The design also concentrates the visual mass towards the center of the building, which draws the viewer's eye towards the landscaping and the entrances in the middle rather than the garages. The rendering on the right demonstrates the compliant option. With this option, the overall design is less symmetrical and has an unfavorable geometry. The car parked under the cantilever is always visible from the street and negatively impacts the streetscape character as a result. Household items and bikes are more difficult to store, and garbage and recycling bins are constantly visible from the street. It's worth noting as well that the proposed design on the left is supported by neighboring residents, whereas the compliant option on the right is not supported. Next slide, please. So our clients consulted 14 of their neighbors, showing them both the proposed option and the compliant option. Next slide, please. So from this consultation, as you'll see on the map, 9 residents signed letters of support, 1 resident expressed verbal support, and 4 residents did not respond. We also reached out to the Wellington Village Community Association, who reviewed the application, but provided no further comment on the application. As you see, the residents who are nearest to the property and who are most likely to be impacted were the ones who our client spoke to, and they were also the ones who supported the proposal. Based on the comparative design improvements of the proposal versus the compliant option and the neighborhood support, the proposed variances should be considered minor. Next slide, please. The second test is whether the variances meet the intent of the official plan. The variances meet the intent of the OP to accommodate a mix of residential and non-residential building types to support 50-minute communities by adding 2 new semi-detached dwellings to the area. They also meet the OP's intent to provide for gradual intensification while maintaining the low-rise character of the area by increasing the site's density while still retaining a ground-oriented built form. Lastly, they meet the OP's intent to provide good urban design and neighborhood compatibility. The design maintains a sense of transparency thanks to the windows. The design also concentrates visual mass in the center, which emphasizes landscape portions. Furthermore, the design integrates garages into the overall front facade of the building, and the resulting lot to structure ratio and building height is considered appropriate. Next slide, please. The third test is whether the proposed variances meet the intent of the zoning bylaw. So the variances meet the intent of the rear yard setback provision to provide adequate rear yard space and buffer buildings from neighboring rear yards, as the proposed reduction is a product of providing a more contextual front yard setback, and is therefore technical in nature. Furthermore, the reduction is minimal and matches the abutting setbacks and provides adequate amenity area. And further, there's an old untraveled lane between these 2 lots on the east side of Grange and on the west side of Spurley Avenue, which further buffers the reduction in the rear yard from the neighbors. The variances also meet the intent of the streetscape character analysis to ensure that new development is appropriate for the character of the street. As I mentioned before, the design results in an attractive, compatible streetscape presentation, which removes vehicles from the streetscape. It also matches the abutting dwellings to the north and the south in scale, and the immediate dwellings is streetscape character analysis group in the provision of front-facing attached garages. Lastly, the variances meet the intent of the aggregate front yard soft landscaped area to ensure that adequate soft landscaping in front yards is provided for stormwater management and to manage heat island effects, and to ensure that there's adequate space for tree plantings. This intent is met as the total front landscaped area exceeds the bylaw requirement, which achieves managing the heat island effect and managing stormwater. And sufficient space is also provided in the aggregate front yard to accommodate the planned tree plantings in the front yard. Next slide, please. So the last test is whether the variances are considered a suitable and desirable use of land. The proposed built form should be considered suitable and desirable because it is consistent with the surrounding low-rise ground-oriented built form context. It also contributes to provincial and municipal housing goals through gentle intensification while retaining a context-appropriate height, scale, and massing. and it is consistent with the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. It is therefore the opinion of Q9 Planning and Design that the proposed minor variances and severances constitute good land use planning. Next slide, please. So that concludes my portion of the presentation, but before I end, I would like to briefly turn it over to the property owners, Ramsey Shuck and Anthony Rotundi. Both have been very involved throughout this process, particularly when it comes to speaking with neighbors about the proposal. So if I could, I'd like to pass it over to them to speak about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun. I'm Anthony Rotundi at 37 Grange Avenue. My husband Ramsey Shuck and I own this property since September of 2016, and I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to highlight our neighbor consultation efforts, specifically as they relate to the front-facing garage. In January 2022, we drafted and sent out a 3-page letter to our immediate neighbors that described our plans to redevelop our property into semis. We included pictures of both the permitted cantilever parking design with no garage and our preferred design with front-facing garages. We also included a site plan and that we were requesting minor variances for the rear setbacks and the soft landscaping. We wanted to be very transparent with our neighbors with what we were going to request a committee of adjustment and invited them to raise questions or concerns with us beforehand. We sent out 14 letters and received 9 signed letters of support and 1 verbal support for our semi-plans with a front-facing garage. In addition to these letters and signatures, we spoke to many of our neighbors to hear feedback. Feedback was that a design with a garage was supported because it looks like the existing semis next door to us that have front-facing garages. We understand the rules as they are written, but feel that it is a cantilever, no garage option that would be the inconsistent design, as no other house on our street has cantilever parking, but there are several with front-facing garages. For us, having a design with a garage is crucial. A garage gives us a place to keep our compost, recycling bins, and garbage out of sight, store our winter tires, store a snowblower, and gives us a spot to securely park our car out of view, all of which help keep the streetscape tidy. The design is not a snout garage. It blends seamlessly into the front facade. Our plan also promotes gentle intensification by adding 1 additional dwelling, and we feel the same benefits would be true for future homeowners. A semi with a garage is a must-have for a lot of families, evident in the significant number of infill semis in our neighborhood that are built with front-facing garages. We need to be innovative and think for the future in our design, just like Scott Street currently is with the bike lanes under construction nearby. Garages may not have been common when these homes were built, but it doesn't mean they won't add value to life today. Ramsey and I are regular people, and we're sure the committee can appreciate it is challenging to come up with a design that meets our needs and every requirement as written. It has been close to 2 years that we have been working on revisions and updates to come up with something suitable. When we bought 37 Grange in 2016, redevelopment was always something that we had envisioned, and we never expected garages to be an issue when we purchased, given they surround our property. We're hoping for an equitable outcome and to be afforded an equal opportunity to have front-facing garages as our 2 immediate infill semi-neighbors and neighbor directly on the other side. Regarding a tree that's been identified for removal due to the driveway, the committee should know that this has been a very problematic tree for us for many years and is a factor influencing our redevelopment application. It is a silver maple tree that is planted directly on top of the sewer and water laterals of our existing home, and its roots have caused extensive and frequent sewer lateral blockages that require professional cleanup that's very expensive. This started happening the first year after we moved in and happens ever since. We're unfortunately always needing to listen for any gurgles coming from our basement sewer drain, the sign that indicates it's blocked. I can assure you that this is not a stress you want to always be on the lookout for in your own home. We had this documented with the City of Ottawa and with Forestry Services as well. The tree also has to be heavily pruned by Hydro Ottawa, and it grows directly into both the primary overhead power lines and the secondary overhead power lines of both our house and immediate neighbor. We are a supporter of trees in the city, and we will happily plant a replacement tree on our property that is a species that does not have invasive roots and is in a safer growing location. To conclude, we feel we demonstrated an honest and transparent consultation effort. We lived through the redevelopment of the semis next door to us, and for this reason, it was very important to consult with many of our neighbors early on about our intentions. We hope the significant support of 9 signed letters and 1 verbal support received, and the additional context about this tree will encourage your flexibility in the minor variances requested, including for the garage. We would love to have a garage when we move back into 37 Grange at our future forever home in Wellington Village. Thank you for your attention and time.
That tree in your front yard is your tree, or is it straddle the property line?
It's straddled that one.
So it's a jointly owned tree.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe it's on the city property.
It's not, so it's a city-owned tree.
I believe so.
Okay. Which means the city has to give approval to take that tree down. Miss Young, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
All right. Regarding this tree in front of 37 Grange.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, we have had some discussion. I'm not in favor of removing this city-owned tree. With the redevelopment of the property, I can totally appreciate that there have been root impacts in the past, but with redevelopment, there will be new services installed, and that should eliminate any leaks or any cracks in the pipes that would be allowing tree roots to enter the pipes. So with new services, that should eliminate future issues with this tree. There will always be hydro pruning and things that need to be done, but that's routine for all trees in the city, really. Did you have any other questions on that one?
I think the committee has one question. When it comes to these kinds of situations where there's a tree on city property in front of a house, which an applicant would like to remove for whatever reason in a redevelopment situation, what is the normal procedure, given the fact that it doesn't belong to the applicant, it belongs to the city of Ottawa?
Well, generally the normal procedure would be that the applicant would apply to the city for removal and have to provide any documentation of concerns, what their issues are, and they would work through that with forestry services. In this case, a lot of the issues and things that have been raised are things that would be resolved through development. And it looks in this case like there is a way to work around it by just retaining the existing driveway, which could work with the garage design, as well as we'll see on another site that we have later today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Young. Mr. Wildman, Mr. Wildman, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions. While Ms. Young is there, maybe I'll just ask her real quick. You talk about a revised plan to reduce any excavation within the critical root zones. So are you suggesting then that the new services that would be installed are going to be under, like, out of that zone? Or is that what you want to confirm?
I would be looking for the services to be installed under where the existing driveway is. As I mean, it's still within the critical root zone, but it's generally, there are fewer roots under existing driveways.
Fair enough. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Ms. McQuaig, or perhaps the applicant, first of all, it was a great presentation. We like when people actually address the 4 tests, so thank you for doing that. When we talk about the streetscape character analysis, you showed some context there with respect to, there was a photo that showed, I think you said, on either side of the unit with garages, and then the 9 units that are supportive of the application. When it comes to the streetscape character analysis, how did the numbers shake out? Just curious.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can respond to that comment. I believe on our assessment of the 21 lots, the instances of the front-facing garages are grouped directly around this subject property. So in terms of looking at what the impact would be, we're not proposing this as an outlier. We're not proposing it as an extension of the existing context. It fills in a gap between the existing 3 front-facing garages that are within the 21 assessed lots.
So does that mean there's only 3 within the 21 assessed lots? Is that what you're saying?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay. So, and always the concern the planning staff has is starting to a snowball rolling that would, you know, eventually change the context. But in this case, you would have basically 3 units and then this additional one that would introduce the new ones. Okay. You were going to say something?
I have a more fulsome response to staff's planning report if the committee would find that helpful, but I can also defer to how much more you want us to elaborate and discuss, because I know the time is valuable.
Yeah, I think my questions have been answered. Frankly, as a planner, I'm a little more on your side on this particular one. I'm not really a fan of the cantilevered design. I don't think it's particularly attractive. So yeah, I'm comfortable with what I've heard. Sure.
If I can add to, I mean, I've always wondered when this day would come, but now I can say it. I've, you know, been around long enough that I remember when the Mature Neighborhoods bylaw came about. And I know it was the neighbors in this community that largely fed into that discussion and what they wanted to see. And so I think it's very important that their voice is a factor in the discussion of the intent of how these provisions came about. And it wasn't to, you know, force replication of a certain character. It was to make sure that design was appropriate, that they approved of the design in their community. They live there, they know it best. So I just want to make sure that, you know, the history of how those provisions came about was, you know, made a point today, because it factors into the large support that we do have for this application.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think context plays a huge role in all of this. You can't follow policy blindly. Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Before we get on to Mr. Wilder and Ms. McLean, Ms. Wakula, you give us the department's position on this application, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So just to confirm, there are 18 properties without the front-facing attached garage within 21, and only 3 that have attached front-facing garage. And our position is when the applicant is proposing the development that's going beyond the building envelope permitted as of right, which is the case with this application. Our understanding and is the applicant has at least to comply with the streetscape and with the soft landscaping, which they're not doing in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wakula. Mr. Wilder, you had a comment?
Yeah, I'm just going to confirm, by the way, that under the new provisions of the bylaw, parking is not a requirement in this development, is it? It's right near Scott Street. Is that correct, Ms. McCula?
Yes.
Is parking a requirement?
Yes, exactly, Mr. Wilder. It's not required. And also the applicant demonstrated in their cover letter that they're located near LRT station, commercial uses. So they're totally covered with amenities and transportation. Yeah. Thank you.
And even having one of the units with a drive and perhaps not the other could be reconfigured. That's what I thought. Thank you very much. That's my question.
Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wondered how far the garage doors are set back from that front wall projection, and if there was any ability to set them further back from the front wall.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can respond to that. I believe the setback is 0.64. Mr. Steve Artington, who is the designer for the homes, is also on the line, so he can speak to the exact setback of the garages, but I believe I could pull up the site plan in a moment, but I believe it's greater than the 0.6 that's required. Whether they could be stepped back further, I believe they are tight on the interior design of the home. So I don't expect that it could be stepped back further. I suppose alternatively, it's possible that we could bring the front porches further out, because the minimum bylaw requirement for the front yard is 3 meters. But ideally, we'd like to keep it aligned with the abutting neighbors. And this also provides enough landscaping room for trees and soft landscaping by pushing that front yard setback further than what's required.
I think I was just struggling with the what you said in your letter about the massing of the building and the attempt to draw the garages away for that front massing. And if they're only set back 0.64, I see them as the main wall of the building. So that's where I was coming from on it.
If I can clarify, the garages are set back 0.6 from the main wall, but the porch extensions themselves go beyond that even further. So it's difficult to see from the elevation, but in terms of the real world feel, I guess, of the application, the porches would extend towards the street. I don't know the exact distance that they would extend. I can get that information, but they would extend and create that presence towards the streetscape beyond the garages.
Okay, because the house beside you, one of them, the garage is set back considerably.
It is exactly right.
So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the members regarding this application? Ms. McQuaig, you're aware of the department's opposition to this, obviously. You've heard the forestry department is not supportive of the removal of the tree in the front yard. There are conditions, however, that 10 of them that have been identified by the department, just to make sure that you're aware of them. I'm sure you are, but cash and move.
If I'm able to comment on the conditions, we would request the removal of condition 2. There was a tree that Ms. Young thought was to be evaluated on the neighboring property to the north. That tree was previously removed. So that's no longer, there's no corrections needed to the tree information report on that matter. So condition 2 can be removed. And with regards to condition 3, we did speak to the designer, and it seems possible that we could route the driveway in such a way as to avoid the existing tree as much as possible in order to attempt to preserve it. I mean, I think there's a balance between whether we attempt to keep the tree, even though it's impacted by hydro lines, or propose a new tree in a position where it would have a lot more room to grow. But if the intent of the city is to, object with regards to that particular tree, we have reviewed the design, and it seems we can route the driveway around the tree.
And if you rerouted the driveway, you would not need condition 3?
I believe condition 3 would be needed potentially to demonstrate that we can do that, but we have looked at it. So if the committee is favorable to remove the condition, I'm fine with that as well.
Okay. Let's do 3. 4 is an existing dwelling removed. 5, servicing plan. 6, grading and drainage plan. 7, accessibility structure removed or relocated. 8, noise warning for an active railway line. 9 is a joint use and maintenance agreement, and 10 is a noise attenuation study, because I'm going to imagine because of your proximity to Scott Street. Hydro standard comments, right-of-way branch at the city, again, standard comments regarding private approaches, permits needed if there's any new relocated or widened driveways. I think both Mr. Wildman and Mr. Wilder have further comments. Mr. Wilder.
Mr. Chair, I don't know how the others feel. I'd like to reserve on this application.
I was going to suggest that we probably should reserve this on this application, Mr. Wilder. Mr. Wildman?
We just didn't hear from Ms. Young about removal of conditions 2 and 3. I'd like to have her feedback, please, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Ms. Young?
Thanks. Through you, Mr. Chair, I am okay with removing condition number 2 and retaining condition number 3.
Okay. Retain 3, remove 2. All right. So we can delete condition number 2. All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. McQuaig and others. I think what we'll do is we, given the department's objections to
Just,
this?
one-
Comments, Mr. Wilder?
Yeah. Mr. Quaig, you mentioned here that your client would be prepared to reroute the driveway. Maybe you can just, before we leave this item, can you just elaborate on that in terms of his the ability to reroute the driveway, as you're pointing out? She's still there?
Yes, we're still here. Through you, Mr. Chair, we did, having the response from Nancy, I believe emails were sending around this morning. I did reach out to the designer and asked if that was possible to route the driveway around the tree, and he did provide me with a sketch showing that. And I think the way the driveway would enter would be roughly where it is now, and then it curves in towards the garage. So they've confirmed that it seems to be possible. And so as per condition 3, we would essentially be submitting, the more cemented version of that sketch to Nancy for confirmation.
Okay.
Thank you. That's fine.
With that, I think we'll reserve this of Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one more question. If the driveway was rerouted, would that affect your front landscaping variance? The aggregate?
Yes, it's possible. It would certainly affect it. Whether it would remove that variance, I don't know. It would certainly lessen it, but that calculation hasn't been done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, what we will do is we shall reserve on this application, and you will hear from the committee by next Friday. Thank you very much for your input.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for your time.
Next item on the agenda is item 6, 499, 499A, 499B Hilson Avenue. This is an application to subdivide the property into 2 parcels of land for a new 3-story semi-detached dwelling. I believe the applicant on this is Ms. Hill, or the applicant's agent. Ms. Hill.
Hello,
Your address for the record, please.
414 Churchill Avenue North.
Okay. This is a consent application,
Yes,
and your rationale
Sorry,
for
can we get the oath read?
acceptance is based on, oh, sorry, I have to go over this first. I gotta do this. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
yes, I do so swear.
Okay, so this is a consent application, and you've given us a 4-test rationale.
Sorry about that.
So, as far as the consent is concerned, is the proposal consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020?
Yes,
Professional opinion. Is there no need for a plan of subdivision because this represents orderly development of the land?
yes,
Okay, and in your opinion, of the as the proposal apps of adequate regard for the criteria in section 5124 of the Act, which is regarding consent applications.
absolutely.
All right. You're aware of the conditions that that the
Yes.
department is cash in lieu tree planting plan to include a new 75mm tree to be planted on the property frontage or right of way, servicing plan, and asphalt overlay, accessory structure removed or relocated, and an adjuma.
I'd like to propose a few changes to those.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay, condition 5 seems unnecessary as the shed was demolished quite some time ago.
Okay.
Condition 4, because the building all the work has been done on the street and the street has already been repaired, I was hoping that you could add to that provision a rather standard clause. If the development review manager of the West Branch within planning, real estate and economic development department or his or her designate determines that a development agreement requiring an asphalt overlay is no longer necessary, this condition can be deemed as fulfilled. I've sent that on paper to the committee just before the hearing to save your scribe some quick writing there. It would just take into account the process that's already happened. Also, the condition number 4 has a typo in it. We're on Hilson Avenue, not on Columbus.
Condition 4. Okay. All right. And that's in the planning department's report.
Yeah, and the list of conditions there.
Mr. Hamilton, you're the planner on this file. You've heard Ms. Hill's comments regarding condition 4 and condition 5.
Yes, apologies on the typo there. That's not a concern. And then condition 5, we wouldn't have any concerns with adding the additional wording there either.
You just wanted that removed, did you not, Ms. Hill?
Yeah, if you don't mind removing condition. Yeah, condition, I mean, you could remove both conditions 4 and 5. Or if you want to keep 4, you could add the provision such that it can sort of be deemed fulfilled.
Mr. Hamilton?
I believe we would be agreeable to removing condition 5 if it's already been removed and the applicant confirms that. Condition 4, we would prefer that it stay and the additional wording be added.
Okay. Does that satisfy you, Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Okay, so condition 4 will be amended. Condition 5 will be removed. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments to the members of the committee? All in favor of granting this consent as amended? Conditions amended? All in favor? Good.
Thank you.
Consent's granted, Ms. Hill.
Thanks.
Next application we'll deal with today is item 9 on the agenda, 37 Clarendon Avenue. And this is to permit front-facing attached garage and a rear covered deck for a proposed 2-story detached dwelling. We note that due to revised plans dated March the 30th, 2022, variance B, as in Bob, has been removed. And we also note that there has been a revised site plan and tree information report submitted. And there was an amendment to the public notice as noted by Pred that now reads the owners want to demolish a portion of the existing detached dwelling and to construct a 2-story addition to the detached dwelling as shown on plans filed with the committee. That just clarifies the comments. The agent for this application is Mr. Moore.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right, before we begin, the oath or solemn declaration, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do.
All right.
For the record, my name is Greg Moore at 37 Clarendon Avenue.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and panel. In the interest of my allotted time, I'll focus on the 2 tests raised as concerned by planning staff. Test 2, the question is, does the variance maintain the general intent of the zoning bylaw? In the planning report, staff have stated that the intent of the zoning bylaw is the development should be consistent with the streetscape's dominant characteristics. The actual wording as it pertains to the test that should be applied is, does the variance maintain the general intent of the zoning bylaw? As I understand it, the use of the words general intent, as conveyed to me by senior planning friends, was incorporated intentionally by the city to enable considerations of variances that achieve the high level objectives of the bylaw and the provisions. In my mind, there are two factors that merit consideration as to whether the requested variance meets that general intent. Firstly, the issue regarding general intent is the manner of how to accommodate parking when compared to what I'm able to do as of right under the zoning bylaw. Is a single car garage, which we're seeking as a variance, aesthetically recessed into a building with a garage door, generally any different than a carport that cantilevers over a car 1.8 meters as is allowed per section 148C. If you feel there is a general difference, how might that opinion change when this is proposed within a streetscape where there are 6 garages in the immediate vicinity, as demonstrated in slide 1, which I'd ask the coordinator to bring forward, please. And not a single carport on the street. Hoping that we'll actually bring forward the requested slide 1. Secondly, the determination of whether a garage is allowed is based on the sample size. If the concern is that an attached garage is out of character or not the dominant characteristic, how would a carport compare to the buildings in close proximity of which the majority have garages if you're looking at the concept of general intent? You can see from the key plan, 37 is highlighted in the blue box, and the properties, no, that's, I'm sorry, go back to the previous slide. At the bottom of that slide there, you can see the 6 buildings or houses, which are pictured above, that have the garages attached. So if you're looking at how the majority of these are is out of character, I'm sorry, the determination of the garage is allowed is based on the sample size. If the concern is that an attached garage is out of character or not the dominant characteristic, how would a carport compare to the buildings in close proximity of which the majority have garages and in fact that an attached garage is more in context? I would believe that this should merit consideration, that the closer you are to the building in question, the more consistent the building should be with its most immediate context. Would you not think that a carport, which is an as of right for the property, would stand out more like a sore thumb when compared to roughly half of the houses in the immediate area that have garages, and in fact that an attached garage is more in context? Would that attached garage, as proposed, not be more in keeping with the general intent of maintaining the general character of the streetscape? The second test that the city planning staff question is the concept of whether a variance is minor in nature. The concept of whether a variance is minor in nature is supposed to be evaluated based on whether the variance will generate adverse impacts on abutting properties or those in close proximity to the subject property. If a carport is in conformance with the streetscape character analysis, then the question to be asked is whether there would be any negative impact on any adjacent neighbors if I were to instead build an attached garage in the exact same location. I reiterate that this building would not be the only building with a garage in the immediate context. How can that be perceived as not minor in nature if the question is regarding the impact on adjacent neighbors, many of them who have those garages? What impact can we point to that a garage, sensitively integrated, located within a pocket of the street with garages, might cause in comparison to the as of right carport, which would be the only carport on the street, most definitely out of character, and how could this proposal fail the test of being minor? Further, one should consider, as has been noted in previous presentations, the reality of carports, which can include the open storage of things like garbage, which are screened within a garage if allowed. Is there any clear evidence to this panel that the variance will generate negative impacts for surrounding neighbors? And if there is not, then I believe this variance in fact is minor in nature. Staff have raised the concern that granting the requested variance could affect future streetscape character analysis results for other properties, potentially changing the dominant streetscape character and thus the zoning permissions on the street, which is not the intent of the bylaw. In reviewing the potential impact that allowing an attached garage would have on changing the dominant streetscape character, I do not share the view that this is likely possible. The majority of the homes are well established, carefully maintained, and not potential candidates for significant alterations when compared to our house that had been allowed to deteriorate, is uninhabitable, and prior to our purchase. My response to the city planning position, respectfully, is that the concept of a mature neighborhood with a rigid, dominant streetscape character is not something that should be accepted as static. It would deny the concept of progress. If variances to the streetscape character are not considered, city blocks will become homogeneous, as the dominant character will become the only character instead of allowing for independent taste and market forces to determine street and architectural character. I do believe well thought out variances should merit consideration, and if by chance they change the dominant character of a street, then this should actually be viewed as a positive effect. In closing, and I'm being very cognizant of my time, we have talked with the neighbors extensively over the last 9 months. We've held multiple open houses. We have worked to ensure protection of the urban canopy and secured the city infill forester's support. We met with Wellington Village Community Association and the councillor and have no registered acknowledgement of any opposition. If you look to slide 2, you can see the 60-meter radius, which we exceeded when we canvassed the neighborhood over multiple weeks and secured 48 signatures supporting this application on the submitted petition and/or via letters and emails. The blue dots are owners who signed or sent emails. The orange dots are supportive but did not want to sign a petition. There are a handful of properties which are rentals, vacant, under development, and/or we were unable to contact the owner because they were away on holiday. We are aware of only one neighbor's objection, for which a key aspect of the objection is a variance that is no longer being requested as it has been removed. Thank you for your time. We respectfully ask for your approval of the minor variance that we are requesting.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. And by the way, for your information, when it comes to assessing a variance, the Vincent versus DeGasperis decision in 2005 determined that yes, impact was one of the criteria that we had to look at. We also have to look at a variance and determine whether or not it's too large to be minor or whether it's too important to be minor. So with that, Ms. Wakula, you're the planner on this file, the department's position on this application. And we've now reduced, just to make it clear, there's only one variance left because the variance B has been deleted, so we're left with permit a front-facing attached garage.
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. Chair, we oppose the minor variance. In our opinion, it's not minor. It doesn't keep the intent of the zoning bylaw because the parking is not required in this area for this type of development. And it's not in accordance with the permitted streetscape, confirmed streetscape.
And out of the 21 homes, how many had an attached garage and how many did not?
Yes, one moment, I will pull it out. So based on 21 properties analyzed, it's 15 had no attached front-facing garage and only 6 had one.
Okay. Any of those 6 with an attached garage a recent build?
I cannot answer that right now. Apologies.
You wouldn't have any streetscape evidence, Mr. Moore, on the street, would you? That you could show us?
I did refer to slide 1, Mr. Chair. The 6 houses that I would bring up. If you look to 34 Clarendon, that was in the last 7 or 8 years, which is in the lower right-hand corner. 29 Clarendon, which is immediately adjacent to us, was done 4 years ago. And 32 Clarendon was done about 6 or 7 years ago. The others have been in existence for some time. All of these, though, were constructed before the introduction of the new bylaw.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from the members regarding this application, Mr. Wilder?
Ms. Young, I'd like to hear from her in terms of how the matter of the removal of the trees and replacement trees are being dealt with. I understand a black walnut, actually, there were a number, I guess, on the street at one time. This black walnut will have to be removed. They're putting up 3 maple trees. One comment was that these 3 maple trees will be under the hydro wires, so that some point in the future, a number of years down the road, in fact, they will always have to be trimmed with the centers hollowed out, was one of the comments in terms of the fact that it's actually going to interfere with the hydro wires. What are your thoughts on that, please?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Chair, the plans have changed since that submission. So now the driveway has been routed around the one black walnut tree that's in good condition, similar to on Grange. And so that reduces the number of trees that are being removed from the site, which also reduces the number of trees that need to be planted. So I believe that now the planting plan is only showing one bur oak to be planted on the front. And the placement of that tree will need to account for hydro, and that can be done. I don't know from looking at the plan if it's directly under the line or where it is right now, but they can field fit that at the time.
All right, thank you for that, Ms. Young. Thank you.
If I might add, Mr. Chair, the 2 trees in the front that are being removed because they're in poor health, which was part of the submission on the TIR. So in fact, they are either dead or dying.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Wildman, you had a comment or question?
Thank you, Chair. I want to make sure I think I heard you correctly, Ms. Wakula, but could you clarify, did I hear you say that it does not meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw because parking is not a requirement? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, the property is located within Area X, which does not require to have parking for this type of development.
Would you be opposed to parking if there was no garage?
I don't understand.
A driveway? Would you be opposed to a driveway?
No. But the point is that the minor variance is asked and it can be avoided. If the parking is desirable for this type of development, there are ways to comply with zoning bylaw.
Right. I'm just trying to follow the logic about how it does not meet the intent of the zoning bylaw if in fact parking is not really the issue, it's the garage. But you're saying that because it's not required, it doesn't meet the intent. And I'm not sure I agree with that, but I just wanted to make sure that I heard you correctly. Thank you.
Any other questions from the members of the committee on this application? Thank you, Ms. Young, for your input regarding trees and driveways.
Mr. Chair, may I have a moment to add something?
Please.
And this actually would pertain to a question that had been raised on a previous application, I believe by Ms. McLean. The actual proposed location of the garage is stepped back 8 feet from the front face of the house, and in fact 17 feet from the front face of the covered front porch that we are introducing. The garage is also sheltered by a roof canopy or overhang, and the garage door is being designed to be aesthetically integrated. It is not a Home Depot slab door that you would install on a house of this character. We are looking to, in fact, we believe, fit in with the general character of this streetscape and have been cognizant along the way of city planning's concerns, but strongly are advocating that a garage would in fact be more attractive than a carport where your bikes, your garbage, your storage, the actual car or the back of a car would be faced when you walk down the street. We believe that the sensitive design that we have proposed, which has been a lot of time aesthetically looking to incorporate within the design, would actually be more attractive to the residents of the neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Ms. Wakula, you had a further comment?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, the carport will be also regulated by streetscape character analysis, and in this case won't be permitted. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I would question that because based on my understanding of section 140, paragraph 8, subsection C, I would qualify, or the house would qualify for a carport. which we undertook extensive review with planners who acted as references to us.
I will just like.
Okay. Well, I think what we're going to do is this is another application where the garage is being proposed, and the planning department is strongly opposed to the imposition of this element on the streetscape. And I think we'll have to further discuss this after our hearing concludes. So we're going to reserve on this application, and you will receive a notice of our decision next Friday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and the panel, for your consideration.
You're very welcome. Next application on the agenda. 10 and 11. This is 1313A, 13B, Fifth Avenue. The purpose of the application is to sever the property in 2 lots to construct a semi-detached dwelling with single driveways on each parcel. And I believe the agent for the applicant is Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Mr. Kelly. All right, if, very briefly, Mr. Kelly.
So I just have to give the oath, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, that's right. Thank you. Almost forgot again. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do swear.
Okay. So briefly, Mr. Kelly.
And if the coordinator could bring up the presentation, please. Thank you.
Your audio is breaking up. Mr. Kelly, your audio is breaking up.
Am I okay? Can you hear?
Well, you can hear you, but it's a bit garbled.
Okay, if you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So, located in Capital Ward, specifically within the Glebe neighborhood, that the subject site has an area of 363 frontage of 11.58 meters along Fifth Avenue. Site is zoned residential, urban exception, City of Ottawa zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. Thank you. The application of the existing parcel into 2 lots to facilitate the development of a individual driveways will provide parking spaces located in the interior side yard for each dwelling unit. Provisions of the zoning bylaw for building height, lot area, side yard setbacks. And I will also note that a street on March 8th, 2021 and concurrent on March 25th, 2021. The results of the driveways, 11 of the 13 properties individual or shared driveways, and that does form the dominant. So a single or shared driveway is permitted in the zoning bylaw. The relief being requested today to each dwelling unit as the lot widths proposed as the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. Just briefly on the elevators to be 3 stories in height. Proposed dwelling is designed at the avenue for each side of the semi-detached dwelling, and each dwelling are located under a cantilever conforms with provisions of the bylaw for permitted parking spaces abutting a street. Next slide, please. Just quickly with respect to the proposed severances, create the westerly lot shown in red, This part will have 29 square meters and a lot frontage of the avenue. Next slide, please. And with respect to severance application 2, shown in red, this part 2 will have a total lot and a frontage of 5.79 meters on. With respect to the requested permit, a single driveway access to the westerly dwelling unit having 9 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a lot width greater than 6 meters. And similarly, variance B requests to permit a dwelling unit having reduced lot width of 5.79 meters, whereas 6 meters in order to permit a single driveway. Next slide, please. Just go over the rationale. So the first test for minor variance is that the unit is maintained. Subject site is designated general or official plan. Policies of the enforced official plan through infill or redevelopment in the general urban existing community character enhances and builds upon established patterns, complement the existing pattern and scale of development. The proposed results in an appropriate intensification of an existing lot and is compatible with characteristics of existing development in the community. Subject hood and is located in the inner urban transect of the adopted official plan. State that residential intensification shall be comprised of hubs, corridors, and lands within the neighborhood. The proposed development of the subject site is an example of the inner urban transect and neighborhood designations. The subject, which is designated Main Street corridor, and due to residential growth within the inner urban transect and neighborhood designations in neighborhoods. So the requested minor variances maintain the general intent and the adopted official plan. With respect to the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw is maintained. Third density subzone Q, urban exception 1474 in the zone is a permitted use in the R3 zone. Provisions are relate to specific permissions for front yard. To the proposed development, it's designed to conform to law, including minimum lot width, lot area, maximum building height, and interior side yard setbacks. As mentioned previously, streets that in individual or shared driveways form the dominant. The relief being requested way on each lot, having a reduced lot width of 5 minimum lot width of 6 meters is required, is appropriate. Minor variances will have no impact on the streetscape or the functionality. Suggest that the requested minor variance of the zoning bylaw. So further is that the minor variance is considered desirable for the use of land of lots in the neighborhood with single driveways having lot width by the zoning bylaw. And the requested minor variances are each side of the proposed semi-detached dwelling. As determined, single driveway for each newly created lot is consistent characteristics of the neighborhood. The requested 0.79 meters on each proposed lot is appropriate. And finally, the fourth test of minor variance is that so both variances A and B to each dwelling having a lot width that is 0.2 requirement of the zoning bylaw. When viewed from the option of a reduced lot width of 0.22 meters pattern of surrounding lots and would have no impact on the avenue. The proposed development meets the preferred setback on each newly created lot. The exceeds the performance standards for minimum required lot width and minimum required suggested previously. the streetscape character analysis ways form the dominant character for the site. In mind, a single driveway providing access that is less than the minimum requirement in the zoning bylaw is a surrounding context and would have no impact of the site. The requested variances are therefore considered. Finally, in summary, the proposed development at 13 in purpose of the enforced City of Ottawa official plan and adopted official plan. The requested variances are considered desirable for the and the proposed development represents good land use planning. Next slide, please. With that, we'll just say thank you for welcome questions of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I note that unlike the presentations you folks usually make to us, there's no rationale for the consent in this application. So, in your professional opinion, is this proposal consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020?
It is.
Does this, in your professional opinion, is a plan of subdivision not needed for the proper and orderly development of this site?
It is not required for the order development of the site.
Again, in your opinion, the proposal has adequate regard to the criteria in section 5124 of the Planning Act?
It does have regard for 5124.
So we'd appreciate it if you keep putting the consent rationale into your applications when there's a consent requested.
Into the presentation, it is in the cover letter, certainly.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the members regarding this application? No. Okay. You're aware of the 5 conditions that the department has requested: cash in lieu of parkland, existing dwelling removed, a servicing plan, grading and drainage, and a joint use and maintenance agreement. Pretty standard stuff.
We are aware, yes.
And Hydro's commented you regarding servicing requirements and the private approach permit from the right-of-way people for the extra driveway or the reconfigured driveway will also be necessary.
Yep.
All right. With that, be prepared to vote on this application. All in favor of the application as presented. Your application is approved. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Next application we'll deal with is item 12. The 14, 14A, and 14B Osborne Street. And this is an application to divide a property into 2 parcels of land for a 2-story semi-detached dwelling currently under construction. And the agent for the applicant is Mr. Webster. Is he there?
Hello, everybody.
Mr. Webster, before we begin, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is a simple consent application.
Yes. Probably as simple as it could get, I guess. I don't know.
You're aware of the conditions that the department has identified. Cash in lieu, a tree planting plan to include a new 50mm tree to be planted on the property frontage or right of way of each lot. Party wall 1 hour fire separation verification, independent services verified, drainage plan provided, and a joint use and maintenance agreement as well. And Hydro has indicated that they're going to need an easement on the property.
Yes, all of that has been taken care of. There is a project manager, there is a lawyer, and everyone is aware of all the steps that must be taken to do all these things. And I can assure you that's in the works, no problem.
Okay, and a private approach permit is going to be required for any new relocated or widened driveways.
Correct.
Okay, and who's the planner on this? Mr. Hamilton?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
In your opinion, regarding this consent, is it consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020?
We do believe so.
And there's no need for a plan of subdivision for orderly and proper development of this site?
I do not believe so.
And in your opinion, again, the proposal has adequate regard to this to the criteria in section 5124 of the Planning Act?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from the panel regarding this application? All in favor of granting this consent? Consent's granted.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Good day.
Next application on the agenda is items 14 and 15, 68 Sterling Avenue. These applications to sever the property into two parcels with reduced lot widths and areas for a new 3-unit dwelling and the existing dwelling. And I believe it's Mr. Hamel who is the agent for the applicant on this application. Mr. Hamel.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm having a bit of problems with the video here. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, panel members. My name is Jacques Hamel. I'm agent for the owners, and I am at 170 Main Street.
Okay, and before we begin, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do swear.
All right. All right, Mr. Hamel, you have a brief presentation regarding this application or applications.
Sure, with pleasure.
And we'd ask that you kindly articulate the 4 tests and also refer to the rationale for the consent as well.
Will do.
Yep.
If we could go to the very next slide, the purpose is to sever the existing lot into 2 lots, with one lot retaining the existing 3-unit building and the other proposing a new 3-unit building. The only variances that are requested are for lot width and lot area. And maybe, there you have the wordage, the numbers there, permit a lot width of 8.715 meters for each lot and a lot area of 263 square meters for each lot. We're effectively severing the lot into 2. If we go to the next slide, please. The existing lot has a lot width of 17 and almost a half meters and an area of 526, and that's bounded by the dotted line around the colored lot and the lot to the left. The gray on the left indicates the existing 3-unit building, and the more colorful side is the proposed 3-unit building. We notice at the very top that there is a front yard setback that is basically at the edge of the porch, whereas the structure itself is set further. The proposed building face is set even further back. This application requires no variances for any of the performance requirements for the building. In other words, they're proportioned to the size of the lot. And there is a shared driveway to the rear of the property that would have relevant associated rights of ways to permit each building to have access to the rear and one parking space. Also at the rear, you can see garbage storage and bicycle storage for the new property as well. If we go to the very next slide, you can see in a very simplified form the severance of the property. So the consents do comply with the 2020 Planning Act. It also meets 5124 of the Planning Act, and no need for a plan of subdivision would be need for a plan of subdivision would not be required for this severance. The existing lot is currently consists of a fully paved parking lot with 3 existing trees along the south side of the property line and an existing 3-unit building on the north side. The severed lot context will be consistent, will consist of a new 3-unit dwelling, a new shared driveway, garbage storage, etc. The proposal will require the removal of 2 of the 3 existing fair condition trees in the south interior side yard, which is the yard on the right. And that is supported by the tree information report that basically states that those trees are within the buildable envelope and would not survive. Instead, we are planting new trees, 2 new trees. If we go to page 5, I believe it is, on our presentation. This is the, sorry, let's go back one more, please. Thank you. This is the neighborhood context. The lot is in saturated red, about midway up, and you'll notice that there are a number of other lots that are similar to or smaller than the proposed severed properties. So all of the lots that are in pink, light red, are similar or smaller lots with respect to lot width and or lot areas to the proposed severed properties. So we can tell right away that within the visible area, there has been development, and the existing character and fabric and density of lots and sizes are very similar to what we are proposing. This lot is obviously an underutilized lot. The dots, I can take you through those very quickly, but all the blue dots, which is one of which is located on our property as well, or on the subject property, represent 3-unit forms in that neighborhood. The orange dots are singles. The fuchsia dots are semi-detached. The blue ones are long semi-detached. The green ones are townhouses. The darker green ones are low-rise apartment building forms, and the brown are vacant lots. To further explain those forms, you can see the chart on the lower right, which identifies the form examples that are permitted in the R4 UB zone, which is the zone that this property is located. And they range basically from the very top one, which is a principal unit, let's say a single detached home. Some that have secondary dwelling units would be also permitted in this zone, all the way through all the variations of 3 units, either 3 units divided horizontally, or 1 horizontally and 2 vertically. They could be single detached homes with secondary units in the basement of a single family home, or single story of a 2-story, and even in the attic of a 3-story. You get the idea. Even the long semi is a similar thing, from 2 stories all the way to 3 stories with the secondary dwelling units inhabiting those forms from the basement through to the uppermost level. Similarly with townhomes, and then finally with the low-rise apartment building forms. Our proposal is simply a 3-unit form, which is pretty much right in the middle of what is permitted and what is described by all of those lots. So we can tell that it's a very mixed neighborhood and that it would be completely in character with the established fabric of the visible area there that we've depicted in figure 3. As such, the 4 tests of the for minor variances, the intent of the official plan and the new official plan is met, as the proposal is regenerating an underutilized lot with the proposed severance of the existing lot into 2 equal-sized lots, and is very consistent with the intensification policies that support infill in the general urban area and is permitted in the zone. The proposal also meets the intent of the bylaws. The 3-unit building is permitted in the R4UB zone, and all the required performance standard setbacks are met. The variances, in our opinion, are minor in that the lot width and lot area of the proposed severance are similar and in keeping with at least half of the neighborhood lot sizes and characteristics of the areas of that figure 3. And the proposal is desirable, in fact, as it is compatible with those characteristics of the neighborhood, and will also provide additional soft landscaping and trees on the properties, enhancing the streetscape character that is presently lacking those elements. The consent for the consent rationale it does meet 5124 of the Planning Act, and no plan of subdivision is required. We have consulted with the Hintonburg Community Association on November 9th, and we received a letter from Linda Ho, the co-chair, who states that they do not oppose these applications for consents and minor variances to permit the construction of a 3-unit dwelling on a newly created lot.
We have that letter. We have that letter in our package. Yes.
Thank you very much. We also met with Councillor Leeper, and I didn't see any further correspondence from his office. In conclusion, our opinion is that the 4 tests and the consent rationale is satisfied, and urge the Committee of Adjustment to approve our consent to sever and the associated minor variance for lot width and lot area.
And just to be clear, there are five conditions that the department wishes to impose: cash in lieu of parkland, a servicing plan, requirement for a servicing plan, an accessory structure to be removed or relocated, grading and drainage plan, and the ownership of trees to be determined. And the department has said that if they are boundary trees, then a letter from the neighbor will be required prior to their removal. You're aware of that?
Thank you for letting me know. No, I was not aware of those. We have not yet received anything from Fred. Although I did have a conversation with Mr. Hamilton, I believe on Monday. They're very far behind in preparing their reports, and I still have not received it.
Well, I suggest you give him a shout, and he can give you those details, because that's certainly in our report. We also have for service standard comments from Hydro regarding servicing requirements. Contact them, and from right-of-way people that a private approach permit is required for any new relocated or widened driveways. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hamel. Any questions, comments from the members of the committee? Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hamel, you mentioned that there are other lots of similar size, and I think I counted 7 or 8 3 units on your context neighborhood plan. I wonder if you have any lot dimensions and lot areas for those, so that we could compare to the request that you're making.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. All of those lots that are in pink We have identified them through Geo Ottawa by clicking on the area and lot width and lot dimensions, and they were all found to be equal to or smaller in lot width or lot area than the proposed severed lots. I can send you those. I don't have them right now with me, but I can certainly send you them. But that's how we got those. That's how we were able to identify those pink lots. I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Ms. McLean. Hello?
Yeah, sorry. The three unit existing dwellings are identified by a blue dot, and I just wondered, since you're proposing a 3 units, whether or not you had those lot sizes.
We can get them for you. I can note. I do note. I don't have them right now with me, Ms. McLean, but I can get them to you. They're going to be similar. All the ones that are in the pink will be equal to or less than our lot with respect to lot width and or lot area. There are a couple right across Sterling, for example, right at the corner of La Douceur and Sterling. That is a 3 unit, but the lot is bigger than the one that we're proposing, as well as the one on Pinney, 1 in or 2 in from La Douceur, and another one a little bit further down, Shillington. That lot has a blue dot, which means it's a 3 unit. It's a little bit larger than ours, but all the others, there's one on La Douceur and Pinney as well. That's another corner lot. It is larger than ours, but all the others are similar or smaller.
Thank you.
Is that a sufficient response, Ms. McLean?
Well, I think when we're dealing with lot sizes, it's helpful to have the dimensions of similar size lots in the area. But I think by identifying the various uses on the context plan, that would be fine. Thank you.
Perhaps in future, Mr. Hamel, since you're garnering your data from Geo Ottawa, I'm assuming Geo Ottawa still gives lot dimensions.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair. In fact, now it's very easy to click on a lot and click on the lot dimension icon, and it gives you the entire length of the perimeter of the property as well as the area immediately. It's very very user friendly for that.
Okay, maybe in future presentations you can add some further clarification regarding lot patterning and sizes in an area where the applicant or where the owner is applying for a change in the landscape.
Will do. It's we'd have to focus in on each lot because the information tends to be pretty small, but we'll be happy to do that. Noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the members regarding this application? Any comments? We're prepared to vote on the application as provided to us. All in favor of the applications? Your application's approved, Mr. Hamel. Good luck with your project.
Thank you. If the planner is, if Mr. Hamilton is still there, perhaps I could reach out to him and ask him to send me their planning report too.
I suggest giving him a call.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hamel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Next application on the agenda is item 17, 2 and 4 Chapleau Avenue. This is a consent to subdivide the property 2 parcels of land for a new 2-story semi-detached dwelling. This application was adjourned on the 19th of February. The agent for this application is Mr. Lalonde. Is he there?
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. There we go.
Mr. Lalonde.
Hello.
Your address for the record, please.
It's 17 1010 Polytech Street.
Okay. All right. And in correct my memory, we adjourned this sine die in February for what reason again?
It was actually adjourned in 2020, 2 years ago.
Okay.
And it was just because the owners decided to proceed with the severance after construction was finished, and we just got the occupancy permits. Basically, we have one, and the other one's expected any day now.
Okay. So your building is up, and this is just a simple consent.
Correct.
You're aware of the department's conditions.
Yes.
I think cash in lieu has been eliminated.
Yes, and a number of other ones are already addressed. So if they remain, they're going to be easy to clear. I can send over the information. So
yeah, they want a tree planting plan to include a new 50mm tree to be planted on the property frontage or right of way of each lot.
That's fine.
Existing dwelling removed. A
That's
service
done.
plan, an accessory structure removed or relocated.
That's done.
Grading and drainage plan.
That's done.
And a joint use and maintenance agreement to be written. A noise attenuation study or design the dwelling units with central air conditioning and add a warning on title.
The AC has been done.
Oh, and I have to, I'm sorry, before we conclude, I'm gonna have to, I'll administer the oath.
Of course.
Solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time.
Yes.
Okay. All right. The planning department is in support of the application. Hydro Ottawa has its standard comments for servicing requirements to contact them. And the right-of-way people of the city would basically saying private approach permits required for any new relocated or widened driveways.
We've already done that.
Yeah, okay. And in your opinion, this severance is the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement of 2020?
Yes.
And there's a plan of subdivision is not needed because it represents proper and orderly development of the land.
Yes.
And the proposal has adequate regard for the criteria in section 5124 of the Planning Act.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the members regarding this consent? All in favor of the amended consent, which eliminates the need for cash in lieu of parkland. Consent's granted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll get back to item 3, which was on the adjournment agenda earlier on, and there was some discussion between the Mr. Ziegler and the planning department regarding the need for an adjournment. Ms. Plain?
Mr. Chair, the Hintonburg Community Association had also requested an adjournment, so I just wanted to bring that up as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Is Mr. Ziegler there?
Yes, we have.
While Mr. Ziegler is attempting to connect, Ms. Hode, would you like to articulate your request for an adjournment on this application? No, she's not there either.
Okay, well, now we are online. Hello?
Mr. Ziegler?
Yes.
So you've had a discussion with the city?
Yes, and we have sent, this is Mark Jansarski. I am the designer for this, for these drawings. We've sent email to Masha, and she said that, and also the same email was sent to the committee. And the answer was positive for all the answers were positive to all the items requested. And Masha said that if these are answers will be acceptable by her, the hearing can proceed.
Ms. Mikula.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I indicated if the applicant will be able to provide clarification in his presentation during the hearing, because there is also the community association who's concerned.
Yeah.
With regard to something that then we can proceed.
Okay. Ms. Hode, on behalf of the Hintonburg Community Association, you folks requested an adjournment on this application. Please articulate.
Yes, we were very disappointed that the applicant was unable to connect with us. He says he tried. We normally like to hold a, as you know, a zoning committee meeting with neighbors present so that we can go over applications and make certain everyone understands what's happening. Our major concern is, in fact, the rear garage and the stairway that was leading to it. So I guess if the triplex itself is not a problem, and we understand why those variances are necessary, but we certainly are very concerned about that garage. And I guess I would be interested in hearing, I suppose, what the proposal is, and I may have a condition to request, depending on what I hear about the garage and the stairs leading up to it. So I guess we go, well, since we're all still here, I guess we should go ahead with the hearing.
So you're withdrawing your request for an adjournment?
Very reluctantly.
You can let it stand. Your choice.
Yeah, so shall we continue?
Let Ms. Hode decide.
Because
I guess if we're not satisfied with what we hear, we can always appeal.
Ms. Mikula, are you confident that all of the issues that the department has raised have actually been rectified in your conversations with Mr. Ziegler and company this afternoon?
Through you, Mr. Chair, apologies. There was an email from the applicant confirming the comments. But because the applicant consulted 2 years ago and the zoning provisions have changed since then, I personally will be more comfortable if the clarifications on elevations and site plan be provided.
Yeah, but there is no changes to the. I mean, the comments were made based on existing drawing. And
it sounds to me like there's some confusion here, and there may be kindly that's needed to be provided before this committee can make.
But if you could look at the response, if there is
I'm speaking. Sorry. Before we can make a proper decision on this application, and quite frankly, a two-week adjournment would, I think, be very helpful to the planning department and certainly to the committee and to the local community association, because it would give you the time to be able to speak to the Hintonburg Community Association about what you intend to do with the property.
Much appreciated. And our meeting is scheduled for the 12th of April, which I've already indicated to the applicant. So there's plenty of time to meet with us.
That Ms. Hode would give the applicant the time to come to a meeting of the community members and discuss the application with them. All right. And then also, quite frankly, I think we as the applicant the opportunity to provide the committee in a couple of weeks with the particulars of why that order to comply was written in 2019 and whether or not it has been met. So with that, I think what we're going to do is we're going to adjourn this application until the 20th of April. It gives the opportunity, gives the applicant the opportunity to clarify a number of issues. And it also gives them the opportunity to speak to the neighborhood. So this application will be before us again, same time and place. Well, not the same time, but in the same place, but not the same day. April 20th this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, I believe we have conceded or concluded the agenda for this afternoon. Thank you all for participating. The committee will now move into its reserve